Hey guys, tonight we are going to embark on an incredible voyage across the vast, shimmering expanse of the Pacific Ocean, but not with fancy instruments or GPS. Oh no. We're going to explore how ancient Polynesians navigated these immense distances with nothing more than their profound understanding of the natural world, specifically by sensing the subtle smells of the sea. You are stepping into a world where the ocean wasn't a barrier but a highway, and your nose, believe it or not, was a primary navigational tool. You probably won't survive this journey without being completely amazed, or perhaps just very sleepy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Section 1. You are standing on the bow of a traditional Polynesian double-hulled canoe, a war kolua, the wooden deck warm beneath your bare feet. The vast, turquoise Pacific stretches endlessly before you, meeting the horizon in a haze of shimmering blue. The air is warm and humid, carrying the distinct scent of salt and a faint, sweet aroma from the fresh provisions stored below deck. The canoe, carved from massive tree trunks, feels surprisingly stable, rising and falling gently with the long, undulating swells of the open ocean. You can hear the rhythmic splash of the paddles, manned by your fellow navigators, and the creak of the wooden lashings that hold the two hulls together. This isn't just a boat, it's a floating island, a self-contained world designed for immense journeys. The sun, a brilliant Polynesian sun, beats down from directly overhead, turning the surface of the water into a kaleidoscope of dancing light. You squint your eyes, scanning the horizon, not for land, but for subtler signs. Your senses feel heightened, alive to every nuance of the environment. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators undertook intentional long-distance voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean, settling vast chains of islands across the Pacific, demonstrating an unparalleled mastery of maritime travel for their time. They were the original ocean explorers, making Columbus look like he was just puttering around in a puddle. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some master navigators would deliberately limit their sight during training, sometimes blindfolding themselves to force their other senses, especially smell and touch, to become more acute. Imagine blindfolded navigation school. That sounds like a fun graduation party. Historians still argue whether the initial dispersal of Polynesians was primarily driven by deliberate exploration and a spirit of adventure, or if it was more influenced by accidental drift, voyages due to storms or population pressures. Was it pure curiosity or a push from behind? You feel the gentle spray of the ocean mist on your face, a refreshing coolness against the warm air. The scent of the sea, a complex blend of salt, iodine, and something subtly organic, fills your nostrils. You realize that this isn't just a single smell, it's a tapestry of aromas, each holding a clue. You begin to focus, consciously inhaling, trying to discern the subtle variations. Your mind is clearing, becoming more attuned to the environment, shedding the mental clutter of the modern world. This is not just sailing, this is becoming one with the ocean. You can almost feel the knowledge of generations seeping into your very being. Remember that moment in the hammam where you felt utterly clean. Now, you feel utterly open, receptive to the world around you. You're not just sailing, you're sensing. You're not just seeing, you're feeling. And your nose, surprisingly, is about to become your most valuable tool. The vastness of the ocean is intimidating, yet there's a profound sense of peace in its immensity, a quiet majesty that hums beneath the rhythmic movement of the canoe. Section 2. As the canoe continues its steady westward progress, you deepen your focus on the subtle, often overlooked sense of smell. The constant rush of salty air against your face is no longer just a generalized ocean scent. You begin to perceive layers within it. There's the sharp tang of fresh salt spray, invigorating and immediate, but beneath that, you start to detect something more nuanced. It's a faint, musky sweetness, almost imperceptible at first, but persistent. This isn't the smell of the canoe itself, nor the provisions. This is something from the ocean. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators relied heavily on detecting the subtle scent of distant islands, particularly the unique aromas of volcanic soil, rainforest vegetation, or even the distinctive smell of lagoon water carried by prevailing winds. They were the original perfumers of the Pacific, but their scents led to land. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that master navigators would sometimes taste the air, not just smell it. believing that microscopic particles carried by the wind could offer additional clues about distant land masses. Imagine air tasting, like a very subtle wine tasting. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect these faint land smells was a purely learned skill, honed through generations of practice, or if some individuals possessed a genetic predisposition for heightened olfactory sensitivity. Was it all training, or a bit of natural talent? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that elusive sweet musk. It's strongest when the canoe crests a swell, catching the wind just right. You realize that this scent is not constant, it ebbs and flows, appearing and disappearing with the shifts in the breeze. It's a delicate dance between the wind and the ocean, carrying invisible messages across vast distances. You might feel a slight frustration at its subtlety, but also a growing fascination with the challenge of discerning it. This is far more complex than identifying a good coffee aroma. No offense to coffee. Your eyes, previously scanning the horizon, now seem less important. It's your nose that is truly leading the way. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your other senses sharpen. The feel of the warm sun on your skin, the rhythmic splash of the paddles, the subtle sway of the canoe, all contribute to your focus on that faint, sweet scent. You recall that feeling of being completely present during the hammam experience, and this is similar, but with a heightened sense of practical purpose. Your life, and the lives of everyone on board, depends on your ability to interpret these invisible cues. It's an incredible responsibility, yet a deeply empowering one. You are truly becoming an extension of the natural world, navigating not just with tools, but with your very essence. And honestly, it makes modern GPS look a bit boring. No satellite needed, just a super sniffer. You are learning to read the ocean's invisible language, a language whispered on the wind, carrying the scent of distant land, promising safety and discovery. Section 3: As the hours turn into days, and the sweet, musky scent of distant land becomes a more consistent presence, you begin to refine your understanding of its nuances. It's not just a single aroma. You start to differentiate between the damp earthiness of a volcanic island, the lush, almost floral sweetness of a dense rainforest, or the distinct, slightly brackish smell of a shallow lagoon. This intricate tapestry of scents tells you not just that land is near, but what kind of land. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators developed an encyclopedic knowledge of environmental cues, including wave patterns, cloud formations, bird flight paths, and specific ocean smells, integrating them into a holistic system of non-instrument navigation. They were living, breathing environmental supercomputers, way before anyone invented a silicon chip. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would collect samples of distinctive mud or vegetation from known islands and carry them on voyages, occasionally taking a sniff to calibrate their olfactory memory for similar landmasses. Imagine a historical aromatherapy kit for navigation. Historians still argue whether the highly specialized knowledge of these environmental cues was entirely empirically derived from observation and practice, or if there was a component of intuitive understanding, or even spiritual connection to the natural world. Was it pure science or a bit of magic? You take a deep breath, discerning the subtle shift from the general sweet musk to a faint, almost grassy undertone, suggesting the presence of low-lying vegetation. Your mind races, trying to recall the descriptions of islands from your training, matching the scent to a potential landmass. This isn't rote memorization, it's a deep, intuitive understanding that feels almost primal. You find yourself closing your eyes frequently, allowing your other senses to recede, focusing solely on the subtle currents of scent carried on the wind. The sun is now lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the water, and the air is slightly cooler, making the aromas feel crisper, more defined. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady heartbeat beneath you, urging you onward. You feel a growing sense of excitement, a quiet thrill of discovery as the unseen world slowly reveals itself through its scent. This is far more satisfying than just seeing a landmass appear on a screen. This is a sensory triumph, and honestly, it makes you wonder what else we're missing in the modern world by relying so heavily on visual and digital cues. Maybe your morning commute would be better if you could smell the subtle changes in the local geology. No, probably not. Just more car fumes. But it's a thought. You realize that this ancient form of navigation is not just about getting from point A to point B. It's about becoming deeply immersed in the natural world, understanding its language, and trusting your innate senses. It's a profound connection, a dance between human ingenuity and the vastness of nature. You are not just a passenger, you are a living, breathing part of the navigational system, guided by the invisible currents of scent. Section 4. Beyond the general scent of land. Your olfactory training has drilled into you the distinct smell of island freshwater. It's a very specific aroma, a subtle coolness, a hint of damp earth, and an almost metallic tang, utterly different from the vast, salty expanse of the open ocean. This scent is an invaluable beacon, as freshwater sources are crucial for survival on prolonged voyages. You begin to consciously scan the air, particularly when the wind shifts, seeking out this delicate yet vital indicator. A mainstream historical fact is that identifying freshwater sources was paramount for Polynesian voyagers, and they developed highly sophisticated methods for doing so, including observing cloud formations, monitoring bird behavior, and indeed, detecting the faint scent of fresh water carried on the breeze. They knew that a well-hydrated crew was a happy crew, and a surviving crew. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would tie specific, absorbent plant fibers to their canoes, believing these would pick up and amplify the faint scents of freshwater, acting as natural olfactory probes. Imagine a botanical sniffer dog for the ocean. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect these incredibly subtle freshwater scents was a unique evolutionary adaptation in some Polynesian populations, or if it was entirely a skill meticulously taught and refined through generations of practical experience. Was it nature or nurture or both? You take a slow, deliberate breath, drawing the air deep into your lungs. There it is, a barely perceptible coolness, a freshness amidst the pervasive salt. It's almost like smelling rain before it falls, but from miles away. You focus, trying to pinpoint its direction, turning your head slightly, allowing the wind to brush across your nostrils from different angles. The subtle shift in direction of the scent is like a compass needle, guiding you with invisible threads. You feel a surge of quiet triumph, a validation of the ancient knowledge passed down through generations. This is far more exhilarating than seeing a digital map with a little blue dot. This is real, tangible, and utterly dependent on your senses. And honestly, it makes you wonder if our modern reliance on technology has dulled our own innate abilities. Could you smell clean drinking water from a mile away? Probably not. You're more likely to smell the leftover pizza from last night. The sun is now dipping lower, casting a warm, orange glow across the western horizon. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a constant, reassuring backdrop to your sensory quest. You feel an immense sense of respect for the ingenuity and deep connection to nature that these ancient navigators possessed. You are not just following a course, you are interpreting the whispers of the ocean, listening to its secrets, and allowing it to guide you to life, sustaining resources. This profound understanding of the natural world is a testament to their incredible survival skills and their deep wisdom. Section 5. Beyond the vital scent of freshwater. You've been trained to discern another crucial olfactory cue, the smell of healthy, living coral reefs. This scent is incredibly distinct from the open ocean, carrying a complex blend of earthy minerals, the subtle sweetness of algae, and a faint, almost metallic tang unique to thriving marine ecosystems. It's an indicator not just of nearby land, but of a specific, safe type of land, an atoll or island with a protective reef, offering safe passage and abundant resources. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators understood the crucial role of coral reefs in supporting diverse marine life and providing shelter from powerful ocean swells, making their detection a vital part of finding suitable landing sites and sustainable food sources. They knew that reefs weren't just pretty, they were essential for life. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would carry small pieces of dried coral from their home islands, occasionally sniffing them to refresh their memory of the distinct reef smell, acting as a historical scent reference card. Imagine a historical scratch and sniff for navigating. Historians still argue whether the comprehensive knowledge of reef ecosystems was primarily derived from direct observation and generations of accumulated wisdom, or if there was an element of intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of marine life and its telltale signs. Was it just careful study, or a deeper ecological awareness? You take a deep breath, deliberately trying to separate the subtle reef aroma from the general ocean scent. It's fainter than the freshwater smell, often carried on currents rather than direct wind. You might even lean over the side of the canoe slightly, trying to catch the scent directly from the water surface. The air feels a little different here, almost denser, as if the water itself is communicating with you. You realize that your entire body is becoming a sensory instrument, tuned to the subtle vibrations of the ocean. This is far more intricate than just smelling a blooming flower. It's smelling an entire underwater ecosystem. And honestly, it makes you wonder what kinds of incredible things our noses are capable of, beyond distinguishing between good and bad cheese. No offense to cheese. The sun is now a fiery orb on the horizon, painting the sky with dramatic strokes of orange and purple. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady heartbeat that has become a constant comfort. You feel a quiet sense of triumph, a deep satisfaction in deciphering another of the ocean's invisible clues. This is not just a skill, it's a profound connection to the living world, a dance between human perception and the vast, intricate beauty of nature. You are not just navigating. You are interpreting the subtle language of life beneath the waves, using your most primal senses to guide you towards safety and sustenance. Section 6. As the sun finally dips below the horizon, plunging the vast Pacific into a breathtaking display of twilight colors, your reliance on visual cues diminishes, and your other senses, particularly smell, become even more paramount. The air now carries the cooler, denser scent of the approaching night, but woven within it is a faint, yet distinct aroma you've been trained to recognize: the smell of seabirds returning to their roosts on distant land. It's a musky, somewhat fishy scent, combined with the subtle ammonia of guano and the earthy smell of nests. This scent tells you not only that land is near, but that it's an island substantial enough to support a bird colony, a clear sign of a viable landmass. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators meticulously observed the flight patterns and behaviors of seabirds, particularly in the evenings and mornings, as a crucial indicator of land proximity, knowing that most birds would return to land at night. They were the original bird watchers, but with much higher stakes. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would even capture a few seabirds, release them, and then observe their flight direction, using them as living compasses towards land. Imagine a historical drone, but with feathers. Historians still argue whether the precise interpretation of bird behavior was solely based on empirical observation and accumulated knowledge, or if there was an intuitive, almost empathetic understanding of the bird's instincts and their connection to the land. Was it just data or a form of animal communication? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, pungent aroma amidst the cool night air. It's strongest when the wind gusts, bringing with it a subtle, undeniable whiff of avian life. You scan the darkening sky, not for the birds themselves, but for the invisible scent trails they leave behind. You realize that this is a race against time, relying on the last natural indicators before the total darkness of the open ocean makes all but the largest landmasses invisible. Your sense of smell, once an afterthought, is now a crucial guide. This is far more intense than trying to find your way home in the dark with a GPS. This is primal sensory survival, and honestly, it makes you appreciate every single bird you've ever seen flying over land. They're basically tiny, feathered land detectors. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting rhythm as the canoe pushes forward into the deepening night. You feel a growing sense of urgency, yet also a quiet confidence born from your training. You are not just smelling birds, you are smelling hope, the promise of land, of safety, of a new beginning for your people. This profound connection to the natural world, this intricate dance with the environment, is what allowed the Polynesians to conquer the vast Pacific. You are becoming a part of that ancient legacy, guided by the invisible scent of life itself. Section 7. As the stars begin to emerge, piercing the velvet cloak of the Pacific night, the cool air intensifies, and with it, a new, subtle olfactory cue makes itself known: the faint, sweet scent of bioluminescence. This isn't the smell of land, but the unique, ethereal aroma of tiny marine organisms that glow in the dark, disturbed by the canoe's passage or by specific ocean currents. While not a direct indicator of land, its presence suggests certain water conditions, perhaps shallower waters or specific nutrient flows, which can indirectly point to nearby islands or underwater features. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators paid meticulous attention to even the most subtle changes in ocean phenomena, including the color and luminescence of the water, understanding that these seemingly minor details could provide critical information about currents, depths, and distant land formations. They were the original oceanographers, with bare feet and an incredible eye for detail. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would actually taste the water at night, believing that variations in salinity or the subtle presence of specific plankton could also indicate proximity to land or freshwater outflows. Imagine a historical seawater sommelier. Historians still argue whether the interpretation of bioluminescence was a consistently reliable navigational tool, or if it was more of an ancillary clue, used in conjunction with other, more direct indicators of land. Was it a primary compass, or a helpful hint? You lean over the side of the canoe, peering into the inky blackness, and watch as streaks of ghostly green and blue light erupt in the water beneath you, swirling with the movement of the hulls. You take a deep breath, trying to isolate that faint, almost electric sweetness in the cool night air. It's a delicate aroma, easily masked by the general saltiness, but once identified, it's undeniably present. You realize that the ocean is a living, breathing entity, constantly communicating through a myriad of subtle signals. Your senses, sharpened by days at sea, are now finely tuned to these invisible whispers. This is far more fascinating than any light show you've ever seen. This is nature's own, illuminating the path forward. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other incredible natural phenomena we are missing in our brightly lit, digitally saturated world. Perhaps there's a subtle glowing algae in your local pond. Probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a soothing soundtrack to this mesmerizing display of natural light. You feel a profound sense of awe, a quiet reverence for the intricate beauty and complexity of the natural world. You are not just navigating, you are immersing yourself in the very essence of the ocean, allowing its living rhythms to guide you through the darkness. This connection, this deep intuitive understanding, is the true legacy of Polynesian navigation. Section 8. As the night progresses and the bioluminescent swirls trace ephemeral paths in the dark water, another subtle olfactory cue occasionally reaches your nostrils, the faint, earthy scent of decomposing seaweed or other organic matter washed ashore on distant land. This isn't the fresh, clean smell of open ocean seaweed, it's a decaying aroma, carried by specific currents, indicating the presence of a coast where such debris collects. It's a smell of life and death, a sign of land's persistent interaction with the ocean. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators observed and interpreted flotsam and jetsam, including various types of seaweed, driftwood, and debris, as crucial indicators of land proximity and the direction of currents. They were the original forensic oceanographers, reading the debris like clues in a cosmic mystery. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would even collect specific types of washed-up seaweed, using their distinct scents and textures to verify the identity of a distant island, acting as botanical scent samples. Imagine a historical collection of stinky seaweed for scientific purposes. Historians still argue whether the identification of specific types of decaying seaweed was primarily an empirical skill, learned through extensive observation, or if there was an intuitive understanding of the subtle changes in the ocean's health that such scents might indicate. Was it just rotting plants or a sign of life? You lean over the side, inhaling deeply, trying to catch that faint, pungent aroma. It's elusive, appearing and disappearing with the shifts in the current and wind. When you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as land influenced. You realize that the ocean itself is a vast library of information, and your senses are the key to reading its hidden texts. This is far more engaging than scrolling through social media. This is life or death information being transmitted through scent. And honestly, it makes you wonder if your own sense of smell has been dulled by too many artificial fragrances. Maybe your next vacation should be a scent detecting expedition. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, calming presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a profound sense of connection to the living, breathing environment around you, a sense of being part of a greater system. You are not just sailing, you are engaging in an ancient dialogue with the sea, listening to its subtle whispers and allowing them to guide you towards a new horizon. This intimate understanding of the ocean's intricate language was the secret to Polynesian exploration. You are becoming fluent in it, one subtle scent at a time. Section 9. As the deep night slowly yields to the faintest hint of pre-dawn light on the eastern horizon, another critical olfactory cue emerges: the distinct, often pungent smell of rain. This isn't just the dampness of moisture in the air, it's the specific petrichor, the earthy, fresh aroma that accompanies rain falling on land or shallow waters. carried by the wind from a distant weather system associated with an island. This scent tells you that land is not only near, but that conditions are favorable for replenishment of freshwater sources. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators were expert meteorologists, reading cloud formations, wind shifts, and the atmospheric scent of rain as crucial indicators of weather patterns and the presence of distant landmasses, especially those with mountains capable of generating rain. They were the original weather forecasters, with a much more intimate connection to the elements. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would intentionally induce a deep meditative state at night, believing it heightened their sensitivity to subtle atmospheric changes, including the faint scent of rain carried from far away. Imagine historical mindfulness for practical navigation. Historians still argue whether the ability to predict rain from such a distance was purely based on empirical observation of weather patterns and atmospheric conditions, or if there was an intuitive, almost spiritual understanding of the land's interaction with the sky. Was it just science or a deeper ecological insight? You take a deep, slow breath, discerning that unique, earthy freshness on the cool night air. It's a subtle shift, almost imperceptible to an untrained nose, but for you, it's a clear signal. You can practically taste the clean, pure water on your tongue. You feel a surge of quiet optimism, a reassurance that your destination is indeed within reach, and that vital resources await. This is far more satisfying than checking a weather app. This is primal sensory confirmation, and honestly, it makes you wonder how much our modern reliance on immediate information has dulled our connection to these ancient, intuitive senses. Maybe you should try to smell the rain before it falls on your next walk. Or perhaps just appreciate the fact that you have an umbrella. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting pulse that carries you forward into the emerging dawn. You feel an immense sense of respect for the deep intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who lived in such profound harmony with the natural world. You are not just smelling rain, you are smelling life, sustenance, and the promise of a new beginning. This intricate dance with the elements is the heart of Polynesian navigation, and you are now part of its timeless rhythm. Section 10. As the first faint streaks of dawn begin to paint the eastern sky, gradually illuminating the vast expanse of the Pacific, your attention turns to another subtle yet vital olfactory cue: the specific, slightly sweet and earthy scent of volcanic ash or basalt rock, carried on the wind from certain types of islands. This is distinct from the general land smell, indicating the presence of a geologically active or recently formed landmass, often rising dramatically from the ocean depths. This aroma tells you not just that land is near, but that it's an island of a particular, identifiable character. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators developed an intricate mental map of the Pacific, recognizing specific islands not just by their location, but by their unique geological features, including volcanic activity and rock formations, which they could often detect from a distance through various environmental cues. They were the original geological surveyors, with an incredible sense of smell. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would sometimes collect and carry small samples of different volcanic rocks or specific soil types from known islands, occasionally rubbing them together to release their unique scent and refresh their memory during long voyages. Imagine a geological scratch and sniff map. Historians still argue whether the ability to discern these subtle geological scents was primarily an acquired skill, honed through generations of observation and memorization, or if there was an intuitive, almost primal recognition of the fundamental earth energies associated with certain landmasses. Was it just a keen nose, or a deeper connection to the planet? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, mineral-rich aroma. It's a subtle, almost metallic earthiness, very different from the lush sweetness of rainforest or the brackishness of a lagoon. It speaks of ancient fires and the deep forces of the earth. You focus, allowing your mind to conjure images of towering peaks and dramatic coastlines, connecting the unseen scent to a potential visual reality. You realize that your entire sensory apparatus is now fully engaged, a complex instrument receiving and interpreting myriad signals from the environment. This is far more exciting than watching a nature documentary. This is living it, breathing it, feeling it. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other hidden messages the Earth is constantly broadcasting that our modern lives usually tune out. Maybe your garden smells different after an earthquake. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, calming pulse beneath you, propelling you forward into the emerging dawn. You feel an immense sense of respect for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators who truly lived in harmony with the natural world, reading its invisible language. You are not just smelling volcanic rock, you are smelling the raw power of creation, the very foundation of new land, and it's guiding you home. Section 11. As the rising sun paints the eastern sky with fiery hues, and the vast Pacific begins to reveal its true colors, your trained senses continue to be your most reliable guides. Beyond the geological sense, you are now keenly aware of another crucial olfactory sign, the specific, faint, and often sweet aroma of certain fruit trees or flowering plants unique to particular islands. This isn't a generalized floral scent, but a recognizable perfume carried by the wind from a thriving ecosystem, indicating a hospitable island with abundant vegetation and potential food sources. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian voyagers were keen botanists, understanding that specific plant species indicated the presence of fertile soil, fresh water, and a suitable environment for settlement. They knew their plants, both for survival and for delicious snacks. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would carry small, dried samples of fragrant island plants in their personal pouches, occasionally crushing them to release their scent and refresh their memory of particular landmasses. Imagine a historical aromatherapy diffuser on your person. Historians still argue whether the ability to identify these highly specific floral scents was primarily an empirical skill, learned through extensive observation and memorization of island flora, or if it also involved a deeper intuitive connection to the land's botanical fingerprint. Or is it just a good memory for smells, or a symbiotic relationship with nature? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that delicate, familiar sweetness. It's faint, easily lost in the vastness of the ocean air, but when the wind shifts just right, it's undeniably there, a subtle whisper of paradise. You close your eyes for a moment, allowing the scent to conjure images of lush greenery, vibrant blooms, and the promise of sustenance. You realize that your entire being is a finely tuned instrument, receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the environment. This is far more engaging than scrolling through pictures of exotic places. This is experiencing them with your primal senses. And honestly, it makes you wonder if we've lost some innate connection to the natural world by surrounding ourselves with so many artificial smells. Your scented candles probably wouldn't help much out here. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides through the shimmering water. You feel an immense sense of awe for the intricate knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who truly lived in harmony with the natural world, reading its invisible language with every breath. You are not just smelling flowers, you are smelling life abundance and the promise of a welcoming new home. This deep ecological understanding is the heart of Polynesian exploration, and you are now embodying its timeless wisdom. Section 12. With the sun now fully risen and casting a brilliant light across the ocean, you begin to perceive another subtle, yet crucial, olfactory cue: the distinctive, slightly brackish scent of a shallow lagoon, indicating a specific type of island with a protected, calm interior body of water. This isn't the open ocean's vast saltiness, it's a more confined, slightly warmer, and often more organic smell, signaling a sheltered anchorage and often abundant marine life within its bounds. A mainstream historical fact is that lagoons were vital for Polynesian navigators, as they offered safe harbors for their canoes, access to freshwater lenses, and rich fishing grounds, making their detection a top priority when seeking new lands. They were the perfect natural marinas, complete with built-in food supply. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would intentionally drift small, weighted scent markers, impregnated with lagoon-specific algae or sediments, downwind to test for the presence of a lagoon, essentially creating their own historical scent traps. Imagine a historical scientific experiment on the open ocean. Historians still argue whether the ability to distinguish the faint scent of a lagoon from the vastness of the open ocean was purely a learned skill, honed through countless voyages, or if it involved an intuitive understanding of the subtle thermodynamic and biological differences between open ocean and sheltered lagoon environments. Was it just practice, or a deeper environmental insight? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, distinctive brackishness on the gentle breeze. It's a complex aroma, subtly different from the deeper ocean, with hints of warmer water and perhaps decaying organic matter from the lagoon floor. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the calm, shallow waters within, a contrast to the endless swells of the open sea. You realize that your entire being is now a sophisticated sensory radar, constantly scanning the environment for these minute, vital clues. This is far more profound than relying on a chart. This is reading the very breath of the ocean. And honestly, it makes you wonder if our modern reliance on satellite imagery has made us forget how to truly feel our environment. Maybe your next swim in a lake will involve a serious sniff test. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, reassuring rhythm as the canoe gracefully cuts through the water. You feel a quiet sense of triumph, a deep satisfaction in decoding yet another of the ocean's invisible messages. You are not just smelling water, you are smelling safety, sustenance, and the promise of a sheltered haven after days on the vast, open sea. This intricate dance with the elements, this profound connection to the natural world, was the secret to Polynesian exploration. You are becoming fluent in its timeless language. Section 13. As the sun climbs higher, illuminating the vast, shimmering surface of the Pacific, you begin to focus on an even more subtle olfactory clue, one that speaks not of land, but of life in the water itself, the distinctive, almost sweet and sour scent of large schools of fish. This isn't the general fishy smell of the open ocean, but a concentrated aroma, carried on the wind, indicating dense aggregations of marine life, a vital food source for the voyagers. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators keenly observed and interpreted the behavior of marine life, including the presence of large fish schools, as crucial indicators of productive fishing grounds and often, by extension, proximity to islands that supported such ecosystems. They were the original fishing spot locators, far more reliable than any sonar. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would use specific types of floating lures or bait, not to catch fish, but to attract and identify the species present, as different fish schools often emitted unique, subtle odors that could be smelled from a distance. Imagine a historical fish ID kit based on smell. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect and differentiate the scent of various fish schools was purely an empirical skill, learned through extensive observation and experimentation, or if there was an intuitive, almost empathetic understanding of marine biology and the interconnectedness of ocean life. Was it just a practical skill, or a deeper ecological bond? You lean over the side of the canoe, taking a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, yet distinct, aroma. It's a complex scent, perhaps a hint of iodine, a touch of brine, and a very subtle sweetness that suggests life. You focus, trying to discern the direction from which it is strongest. Turning your head slightly, allowing the wind to brush across your nostrils from different angles. You realize that the ocean is constantly communicating, and your senses are the primary means of understanding its language. This is far more profound than simply casting a net. This is reading the invisible currents of life. And honestly, it makes you wonder how many amazing things are happening beneath the surface of the ocean that we, in our modern world, are completely oblivious to. Maybe your next seafood meal will be accompanied by a solemn appreciation for the olfactory challenges involved in acquiring it. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting pulse that has become a constant companion on this vast expanse of water. You feel a quiet sense of accomplishment, a deep satisfaction in deciphering another of the ocean's intricate clues. You are not just smelling fish, you are smelling sustenance, the promise of survival, and the profound abundance of the natural world. This intimate understanding of the ocean's intricate life systems was the secret to Polynesian thriving. Section 14. As the sun arcs higher in the sky, reflecting brilliantly off the calm surface of the Pacific, you are now acutely aware of another subtle, but potentially vital, olfactory cue: the faint, somewhat acrid or sulfuric scent of guano, carried on the wind from remote, rocky outcrops or small, uninhabited islets. This isn't the more pleasant bird colony smell from earlier, but a stronger, more concentrated aroma, indicating the presence of a specific type of land, often barren and uninviting, but nonetheless land, and a potential marker for navigation. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators used all available indicators of land, including even the least hospitable ones, as navigational beacons in the vast expanse of the Pacific, understanding that any landmass could be a waypoint or a signal of a larger island chain. They were the original, any port in a storm, kind of people, but with a much better sense of smell. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would specifically seek out the guano smell, believing it indicated the presence of highly specific bird species that only nested on certain types of remote islands, allowing for a unique form of bio-identification. Imagine a historical bird poop forensics expert. Historians still argue whether the interpretation of such unappealing scents was purely a practical navigational strategy or if it also reflected a deeper, almost philosophical acceptance of all aspects of the natural world, recognizing value even in the less desirable indicators. Was it just a smell or a lesson in humility? You take a deep, slow breath, deliberately trying to isolate that faint, sharp odor. It's a challenging scent, not something you'd normally seek out, but in the context of open ocean navigation, it's a welcome sign. When you detect it, it's a strong, unmistakable whiff that immediately registers as rocky land, birds, probably not a great place for a picnic. You realize that every single scent, no matter how faint or unpleasant, holds critical information. Your entire being is a finely tuned instrument for survival, constantly processing the world around you. This is far more immersive than smelling a new car. This is smelling survival. And honestly, it makes you wonder what our ancestors put up with just to get from one place to another. You're definitely grateful for paved roads and air conditioning right now. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe continues its journey. You feel a quiet admiration for the relentless dedication and sensory acuity of these ancient navigators, who left no stone, or no smell, unturned in their quest for discovery. You are not just smelling guano, you are smelling the sheer determination of a people to explore and connect, guided by every possible clue the ocean offered. Section 15. As the sun begins its gentle descent towards the western horizon, casting long, shimmering reflections across the water, you shift your focus to another incredibly subtle, yet highly significant, olfactory cue: the faint, sweet, and somewhat metallic scent of deep ocean currents. This isn't the smell of land or marine life, but the unique aroma of upwelling deep water, carrying specific minerals and nutrients from the ocean floor. Its presence can indicate the proximity of underwater seamounts, deep trenches, or converging currents, all of which can indirectly lead to navigational markers or patterns. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators had a profound understanding of ocean currents, recognizing their subtle changes in temperature, color, and even smell, using them as invisible highways and guides across vast ocean stretches. They were the original human current maps, with an incredible sense of smell for water. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would occasionally dip small, finely woven nets into the water, and then bring them to their noses, believing they could detect subtle variations in the plankton or mineral content, providing clues about deep current movements. Imagine a historical water quality test, but for navigation. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect such minute changes in ocean water chemistry was primarily an empirical skill, refined through generations of direct observation and experimentation, or if there was an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the ocean's hidden depths. Was it just a keen nose, or a psychic link to the abyss? You lean over the side of the canoe, taking a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that elusive, almost ethereal aroma. It's incredibly faint, easily masked by the general ocean smell, but when you detect it, it's a fleeting, unmistakable essence of something profound beneath the surface. You close your eyes, trying to visualize the immense, unseen forces at play beneath the canoe, the vast underwater topography influencing these subtle currents. You realize that your entire being is becoming an extension of the ocean itself, perceiving its hidden movements through the most delicate of sensory cues. This is far more intricate than reading a tide chart. This is feeling the very pulse of the deep. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other invisible forces are shaping our world that we're completely unaware of. Maybe your next bath will involve a serious contemplation of water currents. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides onward through the vastness of the Pacific. You feel a quiet sense of wonder, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's hidden language with such precision. You are not just smelling water, you are smelling the invisible currents of the deep, guided by the very breath of the ocean, towards your unseen destination. Section 16. As twilight deepens and the ocean transitions from a shimmering expanse to a vast, dark canvas, your senses become even more finely tuned. You now focus on detecting the faint, decaying scent of distant, waterlogged wood, carried by specific currents from remote coastlines or areas where trees have fallen into the sea. This isn't the fresh smell of driftwood. It's a deeper, more organic aroma, indicating the presence of substantial landmasses, often forested, far beyond the horizon. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators meticulously observed and interpreted all forms of ocean debris, especially driftwood, as crucial indicators of land proximity and the direction of currents. They were the original environmental detectives, reading the ocean's waste for clues. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would intentionally throw small, weighted samples of wood into the ocean, observing their drift patterns and, if they returned, the subtle scent of decay they picked up, to better understand ocean currents and distant land features. Imagine a historical version of leaving a message in a bottle, but for scientific data. Historians still argue whether the identification of specific types of decaying wood was primarily an empirical skill, learned through extensive observation and categorization, or if it also involved an intuitive understanding of the interconnectedness of land and sea environments. Was it just rotting logs, or a deeper ecological insight into distant forests? You lean over the side, inhaling deeply, trying to catch that faint, earthy, and slightly musty aroma. It's elusive, appearing and disappearing with the shifts in the current and wind. When you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as land-sourced organic matter. You realize that the ocean itself is constantly broadcasting information, and your heightened senses are now expertly receiving these subtle signals. This is far more engaging than watching a documentary about deforestation. This is smelling the ancient forests from miles away. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other hidden messages the natural world is constantly sending us, that we, in our modern, often distracted lives, are simply missing. Maybe your next walk in a park will involve a serious sniff test of fallen branches. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a profound sense of connection to the living, breathing environment around you, a sense of being part of a greater system. You are not just smelling decaying wood, you are smelling the presence of distant life, the silent communication between land and sea, guiding you towards an unseen horizon. This intimate understanding of the ocean's intricate language was the secret to Polynesian exploration. You are becoming fluent in it, one subtle scent at a time. Section 17, as the inky blackness of the night deepens, illuminated only by the brilliant canopy of stars and the faint shimmer of bioluminescence, your focus sharpens on another extremely subtle, yet crucial olfactory cue: the unique, almost metallic or mineral scent of deep sea volcanic activity, carried on deep ocean currents or subtle thermal plumes. This isn't the land-based volcanic smell, but a more raw, primal aroma, indicating underwater geothermal vents or recently formed seamounts that haven't yet breached the surface. While not a direct sign of land, its presence suggests specific geological formations that can influence currents and lead to known navigational pathways. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators had an astonishing awareness of underwater topography and geological features, understanding how these hidden elements influenced ocean currents and often indicated areas of greater marine life, which in turn could lead to land. They were the original underwater cartographers, but with their senses instead of sonar. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would periodically dip special, highly sensitive shells or gourds into the deep water, then bring them to their noses, believing they could detect minute chemical changes or thermal differences associated with underwater vents. Imagine a historical handheld underwater detector. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect such incredibly subtle deep sea scents was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of meticulous observation and experimentation, or if there was an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the Earth's hidden geological forces. Was it just a keen nose, or a mystical connection to the underworld? You lean over the side of the canoe, taking a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that elusive, almost sulfuric, metallic tang. It's incredibly faint, often requiring prolonged concentration, but when you detect it, it's a powerful, unmistakable whisper from the depths. You close your eyes, trying to visualize the immense, unseen forces at play beneath the canoe, the vast, ancient geological processes shaping the ocean floor. You realize that your entire being is becoming a finely tuned geological sensor, receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the Earth's core. This is far more profound than watching a documentary about plate tectonics. This is feeling the very breath of the planet. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other deep, hidden signals the Earth is constantly broadcasting that our modern, digitally mediated lives have completely tuned out. Maybe your next visit to a hot spring will involve a serious sniff test for its geological origins. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides onward through the vastness of the Pacific. You feel a quiet sense of awe, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's hidden language with such precision, even reaching into its deepest, unseen realms. You are not just smelling rock, you are smelling the raw power of creation, the very forces that shape the world, and it's subtly guiding you on your incredible journey. Section 18, as the deep night continues its silent reign, and the canoe glides beneath the vast tapestry of stars, your senses are attuned to even the most transient olfactory clues. You are now attempting to detect the ephemeral, slightly pungent scent of rain squalls or storms, carried on shifting wind patterns from distant weather systems. This isn't the petrichor of rain on land, but the raw, almost metallic smell of a large volume of moisture in the air, a precursor to precipitation on the open ocean. Its detection is crucial for safety and for understanding atmospheric patterns that can lead to land. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators were master meteorologists, possessing an uncanny ability to predict weather changes by observing subtle shifts in wind direction, cloud types, and atmospheric pressure, including the distinctive scent of impending rain. They were the original weather channel, but with bare skin and a keen nose. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would occasionally taste the moisture on their lips at night, believing that a subtle change in the air's salinity or a metallic tang could signal the approach of a significant weather event. Imagine a historical air tasting weather forecast. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect and interpret these subtle atmospheric scents was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of observation, or if there was an intuitive, almost preternatural connection to the elements and their imminent changes. Was it just a keen sense, or a whisper from the sky? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, sharp, almost electric aroma. It's elusive, often mixed with the general ocean smell, but when you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as weather approaching. You focus, trying to discern its direction, turning your head slightly, allowing the wind to brush across your nostrils from different angles. You realize that the air itself is a vast, unseen river of information, constantly broadcasting its subtle changes, and your senses are the key to interpreting its currents. This is far more thrilling than checking a radar map. This is feeling the breath of the storm. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much we've disconnected from our primal ability to read the weather, relying instead on glowing screens. Maybe your next walk in a storm will involve a serious sniff test of the incoming wind. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a quiet sense of respect for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's and sky's hidden language with such precision, even predicting its turbulent moods. You are not just smelling rain. You are smelling the very breath of the atmosphere, a vital warning, a guiding whisper, as you continue your incredible journey across the vast Pacific. Section 20, as the first faint blush of dawn begins to touch the eastern sky, painting the ocean in soft hues of rose and gold. Your senses are now finely tuned to the most subtle olfactory indicators of distant land, the specific, almost sweet, and distinctly earthy scent of soil and decaying vegetation from a thriving, established island ecosystem. This isn't just a generic land smell, but the rich, complex aroma of accumulated organic matter, indicative of fertile ground and long-term biological activity. It's the smell of life itself, carried across vast distances. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators had an incredibly detailed understanding of how different types of land environments emitted unique olfactory signatures, allowing them to differentiate between barren rocks, newly formed volcanic islands, and ancient, lush landmasses from afar. They were the original environmental diagnosticians, identifying islands by their scent profile. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some master navigators would occasionally rub small amounts of earth or dried leaves from their home islands onto their canoes' hulls, believing it would subtly scent the vessel and somehow attract the essence of new land. Imagine a historical form of aromatic good luck charm. Historians still argue whether the ability to discern such incredibly specific land-based scents was purely an empirical skill, honed through generations of practice and meticulous memorization, or if it also involved an intuitive, almost spiritual connection to the very essence of the land. Was it just a super nose or a deeper resonance with Mother Earth? You take a deep, slow breath, consciously drawing the air deep into your lungs, trying to isolate that faint, rich, earthy sweetness. It's incredibly subtle, easily missed amidst the vastness of the open ocean. But when you detect it, it's an undeniable, powerful whisper of solid ground. You close your eyes, allowing the scent to conjure vivid images of fertile soil, towering trees, and a thriving ecosystem, a promise of life and sustenance after days on the boundless sea. You realize that your entire being is a sophisticated sensory instrument, constantly receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the environment. This is far more profound than looking at a map. This is feeling the very essence of land. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much of the Earth's natural beauty we miss when we only rely on our eyes. Maybe your next gardening session will involve a serious sniff test of the soil for its historical richness. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides forward into the full light of dawn. You feel an immense sense of triumph, a deep satisfaction in decoding the ultimate olfactory clue. You are not just smelling soil, you are smelling home, the very foundation of life, and it's guiding you towards your new destiny. This profound connection to the Earth's subtle emanations was the pinnacle of Polynesian navigation, and you are now experiencing its timeless wisdom. Section 21. As the rising sun bathes the Pacific in golden light, your highly attuned senses pick up yet another subtle, yet significant, olfactory cue: the faint, somewhat yeasty or fermented scent of distant bird rookeries. This isn't the general guano smell of a few birds, but the concentrated aroma of thousands of nesting seabirds, their nests, eggs, and droppings creating a distinct, pervasive odor. Its presence indicates a substantial, perhaps remote, island that serves as a major breeding ground for oceanic birds, a clear sign of a significant landmass. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators meticulously observed the presence and behavior of large bird colonies, understanding that these indicated substantial landmasses, often uninhabited, but valuable as waypoints or sources of eggs and fledgling birds. They were the original ornithologists, but with much higher stakes for their observations. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would intentionally lure a single bird from a distant colony back to their canoe using specific food offerings, then release it, observing its flight path back to its roost as a direct navigational aid. Imagine a historical feathered drone, but it had to be enticed with snacks. Historians still argue whether the precise interpretation of such large-scale avian olfactory signals was purely an empirical skill, honed through generations of observing massive bird movements, or if there was an intuitive, almost empathetic understanding of the birds' collective migratory instincts. Was it just a smell, or a deeper understanding of bird communities? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, yet undeniably distinct, yeasty, fishy aroma. It's subtle, easily masked by the general ocean air, but once identified, it's unmistakable. You close your eyes for a moment, imagining the vast numbers of birds, their cacophony a distant, unseen symphony, their collective scent a powerful beacon. You realize that your entire sensory apparatus is now a highly sensitive biological radar, constantly scanning the environment for these vital clues. This is far more intricate than tracking bird migration patterns on an app. This is feeling their very presence through the air. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other incredible, unseen ecosystems are constantly broadcasting their presence through scent that we, in our modern world, are completely oblivious to. Maybe your next visit to a bird sanctuary will involve a serious sniff test of its feathered inhabitants. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides forward through the shimmering water. You feel a quiet sense of awe, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who truly lived in harmony with the natural world. Reading its invisible language with every breath, you are not just smelling birds, you are smelling the vibrant pulse of life, the teeming ecosystems of distant lands, and it's guiding you towards your new destiny. Section 22. As the day progresses and the sun climbs higher, illuminating the vast, shimmering surface of the Pacific, your attention is drawn to another particularly subtle, yet incredibly significant, olfactory cue: the faint, sweet, and somewhat burnt aroma of distant brush fires or volcanic activity on a large, potentially inhabited island. This isn't the smell of a localized cooking fire, but a diffused, persistent scent carried by specific atmospheric currents, indicating a significant landmass with ongoing activity. Its presence tells you not just that land is near, but that it's an island substantial enough for such events, or with active geological features. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators carefully observed all forms of atmospheric phenomena, including the faint haze or scent of distant fires, as crucial indicators of large landmasses, particularly those with human habitation or geological activity. They were the original smoke detectors, but for entire islands. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would collect small samples of ash or charred wood from previous voyages, occasionally sniffing them to calibrate their olfactory memory for detecting distant fires. Imagine a historical fire smell reference kit. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect such incredibly faint and diffuse fire scents was purely an empirical skill, honed through generations of observing atmospheric patterns and correlating them with land, or if it involved an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the land's energetic output. Was it just a keen nose or a psychic link to the Earth's fiery breath? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that elusive, almost acrid sweetness on the gentle breeze. It's incredibly faint, often masked by the general ocean air, but when you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as activity on distant land. You close your eyes, trying to visualize the unseen smoke plume, the potential for human presence, or the raw power of geological forces. You realize that your entire being is a sophisticated atmospheric sensor, constantly receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the environment. This is far more intriguing than watching a weather report. This is feeling the very pulse of a distant land through its atmospheric exhalations. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other subtle atmospheric clues we are missing in our modern, filtered lives. Maybe your next camping trip will involve a serious sniff test of the campfire for its historical accuracy. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides onward through the vastness of the Pacific. You feel a quiet sense of wonder, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the oceans and the land's hidden language with such precision, even detecting its fiery breath. You are not just smelling smoke, you are smelling life, activity, and the promise of a new world. Section 23. As the sun begins its gentle descent towards the western horizon, casting long, shimmering reflections across the water, you now focus on another incredibly subtle, yet highly significant olfactory cue: the faint, almost ozone-like scent of distant thunderstorms or heavy rain cells. This isn't the petrichor of rain on land, but a more charged, electric aroma carried by specific atmospheric currents, indicating powerful weather systems that, while potentially dangerous, also signify significant atmospheric conditions that can be associated with larger island formations or weather patterns influenced by land. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators were master meteorologists, possessing an uncanny ability to predict severe weather changes by observing subtle shifts in wind direction, cloud types, and atmospheric pressure, including the distinctive, charged scent that precedes large rainstorms. They were the original storm chasers, but without the benefit of a fortified vehicle. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would occasionally rub small pieces of amber or specific minerals on their hands, then sniff them, believing it enhanced their ability to detect the faint electrical scent of distant storms. Imagine a historical weather divination kit. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect and interpret these subtle atmospheric electrical scents was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of observation, or if there was an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the raw power of the elements. Was it just a keen nose, or a primal sensitivity to nature's energy? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, sharp, almost metallic aroma. It's elusive, often mixed with the general ocean smell, but when you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as atmospheric disturbance approaching. You focus, trying to discern its direction, turning your head slightly, allowing the wind to brush across your nostrils from different angles. You realize that the air itself is a vast, unseen network of electrical signals and chemical reactions, constantly broadcasting its subtle changes, and your senses are the key to interpreting its currents. This is far more thrilling than checking a weather app. This is feeling the very electricity of the storm. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much we've disconnected from our primal ability to read the weather, relying instead on glowing screens. Maybe your next walk before a storm will involve a serious sniff test of the incoming wind. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a quiet sense of respect for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's and sky's hidden language with such precision, even predicting its turbulent moods. You are not just smelling rain, you are smelling the very breath of the atmosphere, a vital warning, a guiding whisper, as you continue your incredible journey across the vast Pacific. Section 24. As twilight descends and the stars begin to emerge, your senses, honed by days at sea, now focus on detecting an even more elusive olfactory clue: the faint, slightly metallic, almost clean scent of deep, cold, upwelling water. This isn't the warm, sun-kissed surface water, but the unique aroma of water pulled from significant depths, often indicating powerful ocean currents interacting with underwater geological features like seamounts or trenches. While not a direct sign of land, its presence can indicate specific current patterns that reliably lead to known island groups or navigational pathways. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators had an astonishing understanding of deep ocean currents and their relationship to underwater topography, recognizing how these unseen forces influence the movement of water and could often be detected by subtle changes in water temperature, color, and even smell. They were the original deep sea hydrographers with bare feet and an incredible nose for water. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would occasionally perform a ritual of dipping their hands deep into the water and then bringing their wet hands to their noses, believing it allowed them to better perceive the nuanced sense of the deep ocean. Imagine a historical version of a deep sea sniff test. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect such incredibly subtle changes in deep ocean water chemistry was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of meticulous observation and experimentation, or if there was an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the ocean's hidden depths and its ancient geological processes. Was it just a keen sense, or a mystical link to the abyss? You lean over the side of the canoe, taking a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that elusive, almost ethereal aroma. It's incredibly faint, easily masked by the general ocean smell. But when you detect it, it's a fleeting, unmistakable essence of something profound and ancient from beneath the surface. You close your eyes, trying to visualize the immense, unseen forces at play beneath the canoe, the vast, ancient geological processes shaping the ocean floor. You realize that your entire being is becoming a finely tuned geological sensor, receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the Earth's core, transmitted through its watery veins. This is far more profound than watching a documentary about oceanography. This is feeling the very pulse of the deep. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other deep, hidden signals the Earth is constantly broadcasting, that our modern, digitally mediated lives have completely tuned out. Maybe your next swim in the ocean will involve a serious sniff test of its deeper currents. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides onward through the vastness of the Pacific. You feel a quiet sense of awe, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators who could read the ocean's hidden language with such precision, even reaching into its deepest, unseen realms. You are not just smelling water, you are smelling the raw power of creation, the very forces that shape the world, and it's subtly guiding you on your incredible journey. Section 25. As the stars begin to fill the vast expanse of the Pacific night, and the canoe continues its steady, rhythmic glide, your attention is drawn to another incredibly subtle, yet vital, olfactory cue: the faint, earthy, and slightly damp scent of a distant, submerged reef. This isn't the full, vibrant smell of an active, shallow coral reef from earlier, but the more muted, almost decaying aroma of a deep, water reef system, where organic matter settles and currents stir up unique scents from the underlying geological structure. its presence indicates specific underwater topography that can influence currents and lead to known navigational patterns. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators possessed an intricate understanding of submerged reef systems, recognizing their influence on wave patterns, currents, and even the subtle chemical composition of the water, using these as crucial, invisible markers for navigation across vast ocean stretches. They were the original deep sea divers, but with their noses instead of scuba gear. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would intentionally drift small, weighted samples of specific algae or sediment, collected from known submerged reefs, downwind to test for the presence of similar underwater structures, essentially creating their own historical scent traps for geological features. Imagine a historical deep sea forensic science experiment. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect such incredibly faint and diffuse scents from submerged reefs was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of observation and experimentation, or if it involved an intuitive, almost extrasensory connection to the ocean's hidden geological and biological landscapes. Was it just a keen nose, or a psychic link to the underwater world? You lean over the side, inhaling deeply, trying to catch that faint, earthy, and slightly pungent aroma. It's incredibly elusive, often masked by the general ocean smell, but when you detect it, it's a momentary, strong whiff that immediately registers as hidden underwater structure. You close your eyes, trying to visualize the unseen reef, teeming with life, a silent world beneath the waves influencing the currents and the air above. You realize that your entire being is a sophisticated underwater sensor, constantly receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the environment. This is far more engaging than scrolling through underwater photographs. This is feeling the very pulse of the ocean's hidden topography. And honestly, it makes you wonder what other hidden wonders lie beneath the surface that we, in our modern world, are completely oblivious to. Maybe your next snorkeling trip will involve a serious sniff test of the reef for its historical depth. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a quiet sense of wonder, a deep admiration for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's hidden language with such precision, even reaching into its deepest, unseen realms. You are not just smelling a reef, you are smelling the very structure of the ocean floor, a vital guide on your incredible journey, leading you through the unseen currents of the vast Pacific. Section 26. As the deep night continues its silent reign, and the canoe glides beneath the vast tapestry of stars, your senses are attuned to even the most transient olfactory clues. You are now attempting to detect the ephemeral, slightly salty and fresh scent of a distant, large ocean swell breaking on a remote, unseen coastline or shallow bank. This isn't the direct smell of crashing waves, but the diffused aroma of aerated, disturbed water, carried by specific wind patterns from a far-off swell interacting with a barrier. Its detection is crucial for confirming land proximity, even if the land itself remains unseen. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators possessed an astonishing ability to read ocean swells, understanding how distant landmasses reflected, or otherwise altered these waves, allowing them to navigate by feeling subtle changes in the canoe's movement, and often by detecting the accompanying unique scent of disturbed water. They were the original wave whisperers, reading the ocean's ripples for clues. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators would occasionally taste the spray from breaking swells, believing that a subtle change in the air's salinity or a unique mineral tang could signal the approach of a significant wave pattern influenced by distant land. Imagine a historical wave sommelier, but with much higher stakes. Historians still argue whether the ability to detect and interpret these incredibly subtle atmospheric and watery scents was purely an empirical skill, refined through generations of observation, or if there was an intuitive, almost preternatural connection to the ocean's vast, dynamic forces. Was it just a keen nose, or a primal sensitivity to the ocean's pulse? You take a deep, slow breath, trying to isolate that faint, sharp, almost electric aroma. It's elusive, often mixed with the general ocean smell, but when you detect it, it's a momentary strong whiff that immediately registers as distant breaking wave. You focus, trying to discern its direction, turning your head slightly, allowing the wind to brush across your nostrils from different angles. You realize that the air itself is a vast, unseen river of information, constantly broadcasting its subtle changes, and your senses are the key to interpreting its currents. This is far more thrilling than checking a surf report. This is feeling the very breath of the ocean's power. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much we've disconnected from our primal ability to read the ocean, relying instead on glowing screens. Maybe your next visit to the beach will involve a serious sniff test of the incoming waves for their historical origins. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence in the vastness of the dark ocean. You feel a quiet sense of respect for the profound knowledge and intuitive wisdom of these ancient navigators, who could read the ocean's hidden language with such precision, even detecting its distant roar. You are not just smelling waves, you are smelling the very pulse of the ocean, a vital confirmation, a guiding whisper, as you continue your incredible journey across the vast Pacific, closer and closer to your destination. Section 27, as the inky blackness of the night begins to yield to the first faint promise of dawn on the eastern horizon, your senses are now finely tuned to the most subtle olfactory indicators of nearby island life, the specific, almost sweet, and distinctly earthy scent of soil and decaying vegetation from a thriving, established island ecosystem. This isn't just a generic land smell, but the rich, complex aroma of accumulated organic matter indicative of fertile ground and long-term biological activity. It's the smell of life itself, carried across vast distances. A mainstream historical fact is that Polynesian navigators had an incredibly detailed understanding of how different types of land environments emitted unique olfactory signatures, allowing them to differentiate between barren rocks, newly formed volcanic islands, and ancient, lush landmasses from afar. They were the original environmental diagnosticians, identifying islands by their scent profile. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some master navigators would occasionally rub small amounts of earth or dried leaves from their home islands onto their canoes' hulls, believing it would subtly scent the vessel and somehow attract the essence of new land. Imagine a historical form of aromatic good luck charm. Historians still argue whether the ability to discern such incredibly specific land-based scents was purely an empirical skill, honed through generations of practice and meticulous memorization, or if it also involved an intuitive, almost spiritual connection to the very essence of the land. Was it just a super nose, or a deeper resonance with Mother Earth? You take a deep, slow breath, consciously drawing the air deep into your lungs, trying to isolate that faint, rich, earthy sweetness. It's incredibly subtle, easily missed amidst the vastness of the open ocean, but when you detect it, it's an undeniable, powerful whisper of solid ground. You close your eyes, allowing the scent to conjure vivid images of fertile soil, towering trees, and a thriving ecosystem, a promise of life and sustenance after days on the boundless sea. You realize that your entire being is a sophisticated sensory instrument, constantly receiving and interpreting these invisible messages from the environment. This is far more profound than looking at a map. This is feeling the very essence of land. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much of the Earth's natural beauty we miss when we only rely on our eyes. Maybe your next gardening session will involve a serious sniff test of the soil for its historical richness. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles continues, a steady, comforting presence as the canoe glides forward into the full light of dawn. You feel an immense sense of triumph, a deep satisfaction in decoding the ultimate olfactory clue. You are not just smelling soil, you are smelling home, the very foundation of life, and it's guiding you towards your new destiny. This profound connection to the Earth's subtle emanations was the pinnacle of Polynesian navigation, and you are now experiencing its timeless wisdom. Section 28, as the first faint light of dawn truly breaks across the vast Pacific, illuminating the distant horizon with a gentle, ethereal glow, your senses, honed by days and nights of unwavering attention, now perceive the most profound olfactory clue of all, the combined, distinct, and undeniable scent of an entire living island ecosystem. This is a complex symphony of aromas, the sweet freshness of rainforest vegetation, the earthy scent of damp volcanic soil, the subtle tang of a freshwater lagoon, and the faint, musky scent of a distant bird colony, all merging into a single, powerful, and unmistakable signal of imminent land. A mainstream historical fact is that master Polynesian navigators could identify specific islands from immense distances based on their unique, combined environmental signatures, including the distinctive scent profile of the entire landmass, a testament to their unparalleled sensory acuity and accumulated knowledge. They were the original island sniffers, identifying landmasses like a sommelier identifies a fine wine. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that some navigators, upon detecting the unmistakable scent of a specific island, would sometimes shed tears of joy and relief, having successfully guided their people to a new home using nothing but their innate senses and ancestral knowledge. Imagine the emotional power of such a moment, all triggered by a smell. Historians still argue whether the ability to interpret such a complex symphony of scents was purely a learned skill, honed through generations of meticulous practice, or if it involved an intuitive, almost mystical connection to the very spirit of the land. Was it just a highly developed nose, or a deeper, spiritual bond with the earth? You take a deep, slow breath, and the combined aromas flood your senses, powerful and undeniable. It's a scent of life, of hope, of an end to your incredible journey. You can practically taste the fresh water, feel the lush vegetation, and hear the sounds of birds and human activity from this unseen paradise. You realize that your entire being has become an extension of the natural world, a living, breathing part of the navigational system, guided by the very breath of a new home. This is far more profound than any technological achievement. This is a triumph of human connection to nature. And honestly, it makes you wonder how much of the world's beauty and wonder we are missing by not trusting our most primal senses. Maybe your next deep breath in nature will be a serious sniff test for its entire ecosystem. No, probably not. The rhythmic splash of the paddles, which has been your constant companion, now feels imbued with a new sense of purpose and a gentle acceleration. You feel an immense surge of joy and relief, a profound sense of accomplishment. You are not just smelling an island, you are smelling a new beginning, the culmination of an epic voyage, guided by the invisible language of the wind and the sea. This deep, intuitive understanding of the natural world was the heart of Polynesian exploration, and you are now its living testament, having navigated vast oceans with just the smells of the sea. Section 29. As the last tendrils of night recede, and the full light of dawn bathes the Pacific in a brilliant, welcoming glow, the combined scent of the island grows stronger, more distinct and utterly undeniable. Your eyes, which have been trained to scan the horizon for the first visual cues, now instinctively follow the invisible scent trail, knowing that where the aroma is strongest, land must soon appear. The air is vibrant with life, a symphony of terrestrial and marine smells that signals the imminent end of your long voyage. You can almost taste the damp earth on your tongue, feel the lush leaves brushing against your skin, and hear the gentle murmur of a stream from this unseen paradise. A mainstream historical fact is that the final approach to a newly discovered island was often guided by these powerful, concentrated land scents, even before the land itself became clearly visible, confirming the success of the long-distance navigation. They were essentially guided by an invisible, aromatic beacon. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that as the scent of land became overwhelmingly strong, some navigators would richly offer thanks to the ocean and the winds, acknowledging the forces that had guided them safely to their destination. Imagine a moment of silent, profound gratitude before stepping onto new land. Historians still argue whether the final reliance on overwhelming land scents was a purely practical navigational strategy, or if it also held a deeper, almost spiritual significance, representing the ultimate triumph of human intuition and connection to nature. Was it just a strong smell or a divine promise? You take a deep, satisfying breath, allowing the powerful, complex aroma of the island to fill your lungs. It's not just a collection of individual scents anymore. It's the unified essence of a living, breathing landmass, a powerful, undeniable beacon after days on the vast, undifferentiated ocean. You feel a profound sense of relief, a release of tension that you hadn't even realized you were holding. Your muscles, though tired from the paddling, now feel light and exhilarated. This is the moment, the payoff for every focused breath, every nuanced interpretation of the wind's whispers. It's far more fulfilling than simply arriving at a pre-programmed destination. This is discovery pure and unadulterated. And honestly, it makes you wonder what else we can accomplish if we just trusted our senses a little more, and our screens a little less. Maybe your next journey will be guided by instinct alone. No, probably not, but it's a nice thought. The rhythmic splash of the paddles, which has been the constant soundtrack of your journey, now feels like a triumphant drumbeat, propelling you towards the glorious unveiling of your new home. You are not just smelling an island, you are smelling the future, the promise of new life, new beginnings, and the fulfillment of an epic quest. This profound connection to the Earth's very breath, guiding you safely home, is the enduring legacy of Polynesian navigation. Section 30. And then, as the last remnants of the night's magic dissipate with the strengthening dawn, it appears. Rising majestically from the shimmering turquoise waters, bathed in the golden light of the rising sun, is the island. Not a faint outline, but a distinct, lush, and vibrant landmass, its towering peaks, verdant valleys, and pristine beaches materializing before your eyes. The very air you breathe is now saturated with the rich, complex aromas you've been seeking for days. The sweet fragrance of tropical blooms, the earthy scent of fertile soil, the fresh tang of cascading waterfalls, and the subtle, salty sweetness of its protective lagoon. The sight, combined with the powerful olfactory confirmation, is overwhelming, a profound moment of triumph and relief. A mainstream historical fact is that the arrival of Polynesian canoes at a new island, often after immense voyages across thousands of miles of open ocean, was a monumental achievement, representing the culmination of unparalleled navigational skill, collective endurance, and an unwavering spirit of exploration. They weren't just discovering land, they were discovering futures. A quirky tidbit I've heard is that upon finally spotting land after a long voyage, the entire crew would often erupt in cheers, tears, and spontaneous songs of gratitude, a deeply emotional release after the intense focus and uncertainty of the open ocean. Imagine the raw emotion of that moment. Historians still argue whether the initial act of discovery was always a moment of pure celebration, or if it was also accompanied by a sense of trepidation about the unknown challenges and inhabitants that might await them on a new land. Was it all cheers or a mix of joy and apprehension? You stand on the bow of the War Kolua, feeling the gentle swell of the ocean beneath you, watching as the island grows larger with every rhythmic stroke of the paddles. The sight is breathtaking, a vivid confirmation of every subtle scent, every shift in wind, every whisper of the ocean that guided you here. You feel a surge of profound joy, a deep sense of accomplishment that permeates your entire being. Your body, tired yet invigorated, feels light and triumphant. Your mind, clear and focused, is filled with a sense of wonder. Your spirit, deeply connected to the natural world, is overflowing with gratitude. This is the culmination of generations of ancestral knowledge, of countless observations, and of an unwavering trust in the unseen language of the sea. It's far more significant than simply reaching a destination. It's a living testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and a profound harmony with the planet. And honestly, it makes every single historical navigation app look like a toy. This is real, visceral, and utterly magnificent. You are not just seeing an island, you are seeing a new world, a testament to the incredible power of human senses, guided by the subtle, yet undeniable, smells of the vast Pacific. You are a voyager, a discoverer, and a testament to the timeless wisdom of those who navigated by scent. And now, as the image of the newly discovered island, lush and vibrant, gently recedes from your mind's eye, allow yourself to float effortlessly on the calm, peaceful waters of your own consciousness. Feel the gentle rocking motion, like the soft sway of a canoe on a tranquil sea, easing every part of your body. Let the sounds of the ocean, the rhythmic splash of unseen waves, the whisper of the breeze, lure you into a state of deep and unwavering peace. Your mind is clear, unburdened by any thoughts or worries, simply drifting in this vast, comforting stillness. Imagine the gentle scents of the sea, the freshness of salt, the subtle sweetness of distant land, dissolving into a harmonious, calming aroma around you, preparing you for a profound sleep. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, just this moment of deep, blissful rest. Allow yourself to sink deeper and deeper, surrendering completely to the quiet embrace of slumber. Drift now, gently, into the softest of dreams, where the vastness of the ocean meets the quiet of your own peaceful rest. Sweet dreams.